Wyoming Senator Cynthia Lummis. She is the co-chair of the Financial Innovation Caucus. Senator, great to have you with us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Are you still hopeful that the language in the bill will actually change in the House?
I hope it will become law either in the House or later this year in the Senate. It is not going to be part of the bill that we will be voting on today.
What happens if the language remains so that it's more far-reaching than you would like to see?
If that happens, we will be watching Treasury very carefully to make sure that they narrowly craft the rules and regulations around the definition of broker. That became the issue. They were trying to define broker in a way that would catch people within the cryptocurrency world that don't have information that's helpful to the IRS and could put them in a very difficult place. I think it expressed a fundamental misunderstanding of how digital assets are built and are placed on the blockchain. So we've got a lot of education to do in Washington.
Mm-hmm. And certainly in Wyoming, I mean, Wyoming has vied for a while to be a crypto capital in the United States. I believe that as of June, there were about 48 LLCs registered in Wyoming with the term Bitcoin in them. You've got Kraken and some others partially setting up shop in Wyoming. So I'm curious, Senator, how you see, I mean, if the original language went in and it was a far-reaching definition of broker, how does that play out actually in the industry? How does it impact the crypto industry in Wyoming?
It could hit people all over the country and indeed all over the world who are doing business in the United States. For example, it could hit miners, it could hit validators, it could hit people who prepare software and hardware for digital wallets, personal digital wallets. People who are not in the business of being a broker, but rather are part of the decentralized peer-to-peer transactions that frequently occur with regard to digital assets. So we worked very hard with Treasury. It was bipartisan. I want to really thank Senator Ron Wyden, Senator Pat Toomey, as well as the sponsors of the bill that we've been working with. That would be Senator Portman and Senator Sinema. Finally, we did reach language that Treasury was comfortable with. It was a compromise, but it was rejected because, as you know, any senator can object. And we've had a lot of back and forth going on between people who want to run out the clock here and extend debate and those who want to shorten debate. And because of all of the back and forth, this amendment fell on the cutting room floor yesterday.
Are you, you've been sort of at the forefront of crypto in your state because of what it wants to be in the crypto industry, but I'm curious if you think that your colleagues, either in the Senate or in the House, is everybody sort of at that point in terms of education to be legislating on crypto in your view? I mean, there is a perception in the industry amongst industry leaders, at least, that perhaps Congress isn't informed enough about the blockchain, for instance, and about issues of crypto to actually be legislating on the issue.
I agree with the leaders in the industry. The Senate is not ready. Most members are not familiar with digital assets and how they even come to be. But the silver lining behind working on this amendment for the last week or so has been that now members are getting more aware of how significant this industry is. And I want to thank people within the digital asset community for contacting their senators and beginning to weigh in with them. And their senators heard them loud and clear. What they heard is this is a substantial community and a growing community all over the country in every state, and that their senators need to learn about this asset and pay more attention to these people because they're constituents that are paying attention and need to learn from their constituents and from each other about this asset. That's definitely been the advantage of having this debate, even though we were ultimately unsuccessful in getting the amendment attached to the bill.
Wyoming, the most crypto-friendly state in America, where Bitcoin-friendly laws and regulations, zero corporate and personal state income taxes have attracted digital asset companies like Kraken, Avanti, and more recently Ripple to set up business in the state. Joining us now from Cheyenne is Albert Faulkner, State Banking Commissioner at the Wyoming Division of Banking. Welcome, Albert.
Good morning. Thank you.
Right, good to have you here. All right, Albert, what makes Wyoming different from other states in its approach to crypto? How has the state made the laws and regulations more attractive to innovators?
Well, that was just how you said it. Was what Wyoming's trying to do is make it an inviting environment for crypto and for digital assets to provide some clarity, the much needed clarity, I might add. So I think trying to bring the U.S. Kind of up to speed and playing a little catch up still from other jurisdictions around the world. And I think a lot of people, of course, it's a small state, small population, very much centered around energy extractions and agriculture. Those can be very cyclical. So anytime you can look to diversify an economy, you can look to attract businesses, talent, retain talent. Those are all things that the legislature and the administration are hoping to do. Very similar to what South Dakota, I think, did back in the late 70s, early 80s within the credit card industry.
Yeah, I saw that Wyoming's Republican U.S. Senator Cynthia Lummis tweeting this month that she's trying to woo Tesla CEO Elon Musk to the state after his company bought $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. Any luck with that, or any other companies expressing interest?
Well, with Tesla, that would be a welcome addition to the state. Actually, we're very well placed on two major interstates and 90 minutes from downtown Denver. But I don't know how much luck I've had yet. But there have been a number, and I haven't checked most recently, but a number of filings with our Secretary of State's office for blockchain and crypto-related companies that are at least doing the corporate filings in Wyoming, because recognizing what Wyoming did in its and some of the laws that were passed over the last couple of years provides a lot more clarity for the businesses that are in digital assets, in crypto, and especially if you're wanting to custody crypto, which I think we all have seen the popularity of that and the need and the demand for that skyrocket here in the last 18 months.
So you mentioned that, one of the special things about Wyoming is that it has relative clarity compared to other parts of the United States. And I was wondering if we could just zoom out for a second and talk about the U.S. in general and the regulatory environment in the U.S. in general, which I think many see as having a lack of clarity. And you have, different money transmission rules for different states. And where do you think the U.S. sort of ranks among other jurisdictions in the world for attracting crypto talent and for crypto innovation? Are we actually quite behind?
18 months ago, I would have said, yeah, probably quite a ways behind. We spent the last year and a half speaking with regulators from all around the world, which as a community bank regulator for most of my career in Wyoming, I never thought I'd be talking with regulators from Abu Dhabi to England to Switzerland. But we reached out to those jurisdictions that have tackled this, or at least attempted to, and provide some sort of guardrails, some sort of guidance for businesses to operate and make it attractive for them to want to domicile there. I think obviously FINMA has been very progressive, the FCA in the UK, and then the ADGM in Abu Dhabi, Japan, Australia. I mean, there's a whole host of these companies or countries that have looked to find ways and find answers for companies that are looking for those answers. Now, in the last 18 months, states like Wyoming, obviously we tackled it. We were the first state to tackle a number of things around digital assets, especially around the custody issue and incorporating those into the existing commercial code. Maintain its uniformity, but provide some more definitions that again gives the legal certainty. I think you've seen the Office of the Comptroller Currency under the acting former Comptroller Brian Brooks, with his background from Coinbase, but then he saw how this area was evolving. And really, I think a lot of us, especially in the regulatory space, tried to balance business development but also consumer protections and a safe and sound banking environment. And I think if you're wanting to bring adoption of digital assets into the traditional financial sector, it's going to have to find some sort of regulatory umbrella. Now, I know that there's a number of people out there that would that's just completely opposite of what they're wanting digital assets and crypto to do, and to be outside of a central authority. However, I just don't see, and I've been doing this for 20-some years, about protecting consumers. People are not going to trust their financial well-being if they don't know there's some sort of protections behind it. So I think that's what we're trying to do, and Wyoming has made some good steps there.
Commissioner Faulkner, Avante and Kraken, they're banks in Wyoming. Why are they specifically banks in Wyoming? Why did they decide to become banks in Wyoming as opposed to getting a federal charter? What does Wyoming provide specifically to those companies to become banks that they can't get elsewhere? Is there any competitive advantage specifically?
Yeah, I would say yeah. And the reason I say that is if you think about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, a number of companies in the blockchain crypto space were being de-risked. They were having a hard time maintaining their banking relationships. A number of them will maintain 4, 5, 6 banks relationships because they don't know if they'll get a letter in the mail one morning and say, hey, we're closing down your account in the next 15 to 30 days. So that was really what started the idea of finding a way around that would allow stability in a simple banking relationship, but would still be a bank. Now, what we've created here with the special purpose depository institution is a bank under state and federal law, not under the Bank Holding Company Act, because we've restricted it from lending, so it can't be leveraged. So we provided, again, the solutions there. Both of them have made an application to the Federal Reserve to have access to the payment systems, to have a master account. We're waiting to hear back on that. There's those specific issues, but there's much broader issues that the Fed is talking about around payments and stablecoins, CBDCs, things of that nature. So right now, though, this is really the only bank charter, up until the late last year when the comptroller came out with some interpretive letters talking about what national banks could do, there really wasn't the certainty as to could a bank engage in some of these activities, again, thinking about custody of digital assets and things of that nature.
Our next guest is known for being the governor of one of the most crypto-friendly states in the United States. Wyoming Governor Mark Gordon joins us now to talk about the regulatory state of crypto and whether or not the current market will have an effect on Wyoming's blockchain industry. Welcome to the show, Governor Gordon.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here and happy to talk about Wyoming.
Absolutely. Maybe you can start off with what kind of incentives Wyoming is offering, and why would anyone in the crypto industry want to come to Wyoming to build and start their businesses?
Well, simply because we've been pioneers in this. We built the first total regulatory framework around what we call our special purpose depository institutions. We have worked very hard with a number of entrepreneurs and visionaries on this, and actually it was interesting hearing Governor Brainerd. As you may know, I spent some time on the Kansas City Federal Reserve, and we've been working with Esther George and others to sort of bring forth what a regulatory package would look like. I actually met with Governor Brainerd last winter to try to make sure that we were able to move forward with access to the Fed. We're still, you saw the Fed just announced their white paper and their account access guidelines on reserve banks for review. So Wyoming has just been a leader in this. We continue to push to make sure that entrepreneurs have a fertile ground on which to build new types of structures.
Governor Gordon, what are some of the biggest obstacles for Wyoming to become a crypto haven? What difficulties are you facing?
Well, I think the biggest obstacle we face is that people don't often think of Wyoming when they're thinking about financial markets. And yet Wyoming really has, it was a pioneer in limited liability corporations. We just, this last year, I signed into law a DAO bill, distributed autonomous organizations. And so we've really led in a number of these things, but people often look to New York or Miami or Delaware before they look to Wyoming, and yet really a lot of the pioneering work has been done here.
When it comes to the infrastructure, do you guys have it to bring in these businesses? Is it not just the regulatory issues, but even the ancillary businesses that go along with tech and even things like daycare and whatever things it is to attract workers to the state itself?
Sure. Well, yeah, Wyoming is a very family-friendly place. We have one of the best education systems in the country. We certainly are I think we've referred to ourselves as a big, as a small town with long streets and beaches throughout Wyoming. There's a lot of outdoors, a lot of great mountains and fishing and hunting to do. And we do have a good, strong daycare system. And so people are starting to move to Wyoming. They're moving to places like Jackson. They've been there for a long time. They're moving to places like Laramie, where our university is. And now recently they're starting to move around the state because we really have put over $60 million in broadband expansion this last year. We have a number of companies that are coming in. And as I say, this is ground zero for innovation.
Good morning, Governor Gordon. Thank you for coming on the show. So I guess if you could just break down for the more mainstream viewer, when people say like, okay, we want to make our state kind of a crypto haven, or we want to make our state a center of crypto innovation, what are some of the tangible benefits for the state? Like, if you could just break that down for us, are they, is it job creation? Is it, what are some, because this would be informative, I think, for other states that are considering this.
Well, sure. And I'll say that Wyoming has been very nimble because we are small. We really know each other. Our legislature works very well with the executive and our university as well. And so the benefits are that, as I think Ray Dalio spoke about a little bit earlier, and certainly we see elsewhere, really digital assets are starting to overwhelm sort of traditional assets in a way. There are incredible forms of settlement here. I think when you talk about tokenization and what we can do with ecosystem services, et cetera, you start to see that there's a lot of research that can be done and a lot of opportunity that can arrive. So Wyoming, much like South Dakota did with credit card processing, several years ago, Wyoming really has looked to this as a way to attract business. I know Governor Polis in Colorado and I have talked a lot about Wyoming and Colorado being really the center of new technology and new opportunities. So the opportunity we see are job creation. A lot of financial firms are starting to look at Wyoming and the way we've regulated, the way we've created the body of law, and saying this is really a place we would like to do our business.
Governor, speaking
just
of
to follow up on that, I'm sure you pay attention to what's happening in the larger United States as a whole, right? And so, one of the things about the U.S. that's very distinctive is that crypto regulation tends to vary state by state, or at least money transmitter licenses tend to vary state by state. And I guess I'd love to hear your more macro picture of like, where does Wyoming fit into the United States as a whole? Like, are you guys still sort of more of an outlier, or, do you feel that you are seeing more of this sort of this more states trying to adopt these kind of crypto-friendly regulations?
Well, it's been a little bit frustrating, as you mentioned, I think a little bit earlier, about the sort of take it slow and be thoughtful about it process that the Federal Reserve has approached digital assets. Wyoming really has tried to push that envelope. Promontory Group was here, helped us build all the regulation we have. We have the most complete framework that's now accessible online, and so everybody else is copying. I think Nebraska just copied some of our new legislation. I know Governor Polis has talked about we're catching you try to surpass you. And so I think if you look at Wyoming, we are still an outlier. We are a leader. We know that first mover status is going to be hard for us, just because I mentioned that people tend to look at places like New York or California, and they've just been stodgy. They've been slow to get on board. Wyoming's really pushed this effort. We're hoping that with the announcement from the Federal Reserve, we can start to get routing numbers and a little more access to traditional financial systems, and that will be good for all of us. I think you talked a little bit. Ray Dalio was talking about inflation, and if you look nationwide at this point, really, we as a nation have to understand what digital assets are going to do to our economy. If you look at any of these factors like inflation and so on, there's just so many more ways to have to look at it, ways to measure that we really can't get a beat on that now. So the faster we can get regulation in place, the faster we can get the federal government to understand what the benefit of these things are, the better off we're going to be as a nation.
Governor, I wonder, have you yourself dabbled into Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies? Do you own any cryptocurrencies?
I do, and I think they're really, not for their speculatory nature. I just look at what we can do with tokens, and earlier we were talking about NFTs. My daughter lives in New York. A good friend of hers had a part to do with Ratatouille, which is the TikTok musical during the pandemic. They're now talking about how do we put this on an NFT. Just all of these things are starting to change, and they have real serviceability. It's just nice that you can have a direct relationship between a consumer and a producer and not have to have that third-party intermediary. So how we do that in a trusted framework, I think blockchain offers a tremendous opportunity.